You want to talk about protocol?
Yep, so we are recording. So good evening again. On the call tonight, we've got 5 administrators, including myself, Dan Megan, the camp director, Will Neville, program director, myself, the assistant camp director, Rachel Zelli, the assistant program director, and Owen Doherty, our camp communications director. And I believe the first slide after that is going to be Owen.
Yes. So we're going to be covering a lot tonight, and I think we'll get through a lot of your questions that you might have sent in before. So we tried to include those in the presentation. But if you have any questions that come up as we're going out through the presentation today, use the chat function on the bottom of your screen and send me a private message to Owen Doherty, just what your question is, and I will make sure that gets answered. We'll probably be answering most of the questions at the end, but if there's a relevant time to bring that in, I will add that in as well.
All right, well, good evening, folks. Tonight is going to be two-part. It's really going to be how are we going to deal with COVID in 2021 and how are we going to run our program? So those are the two things we're going to focus on. COVID mitigation and program and how COVID will affect program. We've had a rock solid program for a long time. And when I say that, I mean, it's been pretty steady in how we deliver it. This year will look different, but one of the main themes is that we want the troops to leave camp getting the merit badges and the programs that they want. And so, as we get into it, Will and Rachel will talk more about that, but we are stressing when we get together that we want to make sure the troops leave with the program experience that they've had in the past. It will be different, and we're going to be looking for you to be patient with us. But everything that we talk about tonight is something that a camp in Massachusetts or New Hampshire has to do. We are not creating more requirements. We are reading the New Hampshire requirements. We are also seeing the Mass requirements because our sister camp, Treasure Valley, is putting their program together. And so we are doing very similar work between the two camps in how we're going to be developing the cohorts and the program. So we are not out there creating these guidelines. New Hampshire has created them, and we must live within them. So let's keep rolling on the slides. We have about 18 scouts who have identified themselves. They want to be a CIT in 2021. You need to be 14 or 15, but not yet 16, but you must be 14. And this is because to work at a camp in that setting, to be a counselor, you have to be 14. And so if you turn 14 during staff week, great, we'll take you when you turn 14, but we have to have you 14 or 15, but not yet 16. We did not create these, but those are the age guidelines. It's staff week plus 3 weeks. The total price is $310. You'll work hard, you'll earn merit badges, and you will go home with some leadership skills and some stories for the rest of your life. Some of my best time at camp, summer of 1990, I was a CIT for 3 weeks and I loved it. And so we encourage you, if you have scouts, might be a great opportunity for them. So let's keep rolling. Quick plug. Rachel Zelli with a few openings in our staff division.
So we still have a couple openings for junior staff as well. So we're looking for slightly older scouts at that point. We're looking for scouts that are at least 15 by the start of camp, but no older than 17. So for the remaining junior staff positions, we're doing a rolling interview. So what will happen is they can apply at campwanocksett.org. And as the applications come in, we'll do one-on-one, not one-on-one, but we'll interview them one at a time as the applications come in and hire them as well at that time. And they must be able to attend staff week. That is a requirement this year, especially.
Good calls. Whoever's rolling the deck, let's roll the next one. This is you.
Yep. All right. So camp registration is coming up. Just as a couple of reminders, the early bird date is May 1st. And I know there was already one question that came in that Owen sent my way, and that was regarding how do we get the names and the roster and whatnot to us. At early bird time, we're really just concerned about the number of people. The roster, we're going to have a method for you to get the roster to us by the pre-camp meeting. So right now, it's really just how many scouts are you looking to register? How many extra adults are you looking to register? We'll take the names at a later date as we get closer to camp. After the May 1st, and that is a flexible deadline. I know some units are still getting back going with COVID and not doing things. You know, if you're having challenges meeting that May 1st deadline, just shoot Danny and I an email, and you know we'll buy some extra time for you on that as far as getting the check in. Next slide, Will.
Andrew, there was an email this morning from a troop that link is not up yet, and that would we be a little bit flexible? Is that going to be up soon?
The link for unit registration is not going to be an online form this year. We're going to have a different way for them to submit their roster to us before early bird, along with Will's program sign up, which we'll talk about later. The provisional registration we're working on getting online as soon as possible as well.
Well, I just stepped in it. My question is, how does a troop do early bird?
They mail a check to us at the Council Service Center. There's a financial form at the end of the Leader's Guide, which is posted to our website, that just itemizes how many kids are they paying for in the unit, so we can track that when it gets to the service center.
Okay, maybe the question was about Provo, but that link is coming soon.
Yep.
All right, very good.
All right, Camperships. The deadline was April 1st, but it's really a rolling deadline. In speaking with the folks at the Council Service Center, there's still some Campership money available. So really encourage your families to apply as soon as you can. The notifications are going to be coming out to unit leaders later this week, either tomorrow or the beginning part of next week. I've been in contact with the program office down in Rutland, and they're getting those out to people as soon as possible. But continue to let your scouts and families know that they should apply if there's any need for Camperships this year.
And checks made out to Heart of New England Council BSA, correct?
Yes.
Collins, one quick question that came in about registration. Can crossovers from 2020 be considered new scouts because they didn't come to camp last year?
Danny?
Yes. So you mean for the, yes. Is that for a price thing?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we'll round in favor of the scout every time.
Yep. Do make sure that you're sending your messages to Owen in the chat. I'd see a couple messages coming in DM'd to me. I'm not always monitoring that, but send them to Owen if you can. Next slide, Will.
Andrew, the form for Camperships, where is that?
That is on the camp website. There's a financial aid button. If you go to the leaders page or the fees page, it's right there.
Some people are texting me questions, and I got mine open, so I'm seeing them fast here. That doesn't mean you should continue. They should go to Doherty. He's sharper than I am.
Yeah, he's trying to organize them.
Right.
So
right.
Kind of the general theme that Danny and I'll be talking about tonight when it comes to the operational stuff. You may have seen a graphic similar to this, or the idea, the concept here. The New Hampshire guidelines are really emphasizing that there's multiple layers of mitigation when it comes to COVID in the camping environment. No one layer alone is able to prevent COVID from coming into camp. And so there's the analogy here is the Swiss cheese model. Lots of holes in Swiss cheese. Your goal is to put more than one piece of Swiss cheese in your sandwich, and hopefully the holes in the Swiss cheese don't line up. So the multiple layers that we're going to be talking about tonight include things like testing, daily health screenings, requiring face masks, practicing good social distancing, having cohorts for things like food and program, having most of our programming outdoors, which is really, I think, natural for a scout camp environment, basic hand hygiene and enhanced cleaning. And you'll note at the top that there are some things that are shared responsibilities and some that are personal responsibilities. So keep this in mind when communicating with families, that it's really a team effort, and everyone needs to kind of do their part to improve the success of mitigating COVID out of our camps. Will? Okay, so the vaccine. I know we've gotten a lot of questions on the vaccine. In New Hampshire, as it stands right now, you'll notice there's an asterisk at the end of that first sentence. The New Hampshire camp guidelines do not exclude any requirements if you've been vaccinated. Now, since the guidelines have been produced, we've already seen one revision already, which is great to see that they're evolving, and we're seeing with decreased case counts going down. But as of right now, the vaccine does not exclude us. We may see that change in the coming weeks or months. Of course, we're highly recommending it to do your part to help stop this thing. And I think starting next week, most people in Massachusetts are going to be eligible. So encourage everyone to get their vaccine if they're able to, if they're of age, and that will help reduce cases. All right, so our traditional pre-camp meetings, we're going to be kind of picking it up from there as far as a timeline goes. So I'm going to be talking for the next few minutes regarding kind of the pre-arrival process getting to camp, and then Danny's going to pick up the process of when you're actually getting to camp. So traditionally, your pre-camp meeting is going to be your 10 days out meeting, right? Your week and a half out from your week at camp. That is still going to take place. That's going to be, however, held via Zoom, not in person. That's in an effort to reduce the number of outside folks from the camp bubble that week from coming in. You want to make sure that your copies of your medical forms get mailed to camp. So make sure that those end up getting to camp by that pre-camp meeting. So that's kind of an important deadline, first important deadline when we get to camp for your summer camp coordinator in your unit. Make sure that those copies of med forms get to camp. Will? These dates are in the leader's guide as well as on the council or the camp website. The week 1 meeting will take place the same time as the week 2 meeting, but we do need your med forms up there probably earlier in that week, a couple days ahead of time. So just make sure you've got the right date on your calendar. Again, just as a reminder, we've confirmed this a couple times now with units. Hopefully you've been able to confirm it with us. The calendar shifts slightly this year just with the way July 4th falls. So if you're typically in week 1 and you're used to having us shoot the cannon off on July 4th, it's not going to happen because July 4th is Sunday of week 2. We might still shoot the cannon off just in the celebration of July 3rd, but keep that in mind that the dates have slightly shifted. Will? All right, med forms we mentioned at the last meeting. Again, turn into at that pre-camp meeting. There's a new form for 2020. It's at the back of the leader's guide. It's also posted to the camp website. Keep in mind that there are additional forms outside of the BSA form, especially for kind of our out of New England folks for things like inhalers and EpiPens. There's also a list of most commonly overlooked items that you should share with your parents to make sure that signatures are up to date, tetanus shot is there, OTC signature is there, stuff like that. Will? All right, so 10 days out, right, same as our pre-camp meeting date, is going to be the date that your scouts are going to start basic symptom monitoring. Parents should be checking in with their scouts on a regular basis. How are they feeling? They should make sure that they're not in contact with anyone who does have symptoms, or if anyone is considered a close contact within those 10 days. Anyone who falls in that category of having symptoms, coming in contact with someone with symptoms, or coming in contact with someone who has COVID, the state has defined close contact as being within 6 feet of a person with COVID for a cumulative time of 10 minutes or longer during that time. They should not be coming to camp. Do not pass go, do not come to camp. The next date kind of in your preparation for camp is 7 days out. So 1 week from the time that the scout starts to come to camp, there'll be a online check-in form, a screening tool that will be having the scouts submit kind of a regular check-in, temperature, feeling, have you been in contact with anyone recently, stuff like that. And that'll be a daily check-in every day for the 7 days leading up to camp. There'll also be an online, we're calling it a training video, kind of an orientation video that we want to share with all of our scouts and their parents that Owen is going to be helping produce in the first couple of weeks of camp. So we were going to have, scouts and parents take a look at that. And it's just kind of an overview of what's check-in look like? What are the social distancing guidelines, wearing face masks, stuff like that. Within that 7-day period, New Hampshire is requiring an NAAT level test. Most people are not seeing those as PCR tests. So within 7 days, you need to have had a test and have received the results, the negative result of that test by the time you come to camp. It's important to note that New Hampshire is at the moment excluding any rapid antigen tests as being available. So you're kind of over the counter. I believe one of the companies that just became recent in the last week, an over the counter test is going to be hitting the shelves shortly. That will not meet the standard for the state. So it needs to be a PCR. The other one that would count would be an ID now. They're both, 24, 36, 48 hour turnarounds for the most part. So most people are going to want to get those probably towards the end of that 7-day period, somewhere around Wednesday, Thursday. That way they have ample time for the results to get back and they have that result. After they're tested, scouts need to be participating in what's known as low risk behaviors. And I think really the key here is scouts who have been doing this for the last 12 months are kind of used to it. Social distancing, wearing face masks, not going to big, hangouts, going to the soccer field and hanging out with, 20, 30 people. Kind of lie low, right? Do things that are safe and not low, that are low risk within that 7-day period. Will? While we wait for the screen to change, a question that did come in is the PCR required if there's proof of being vaccinated? Again, vaccines right now are not a limiting factor for any of the regulations. So even if you have been vaccinated, the requirement right now as it stands is to get a PCR test. That may change, but we will have to wait and see. All right, I think I'm passing it over to Danny now.
I see that we have our Director of Health Services on the call. And so in a minute, we're going to unmic her and introduce her. So just get ready on how to do that. But folks, out of order, but we are very lucky to have in the last 30 years, we've probably had 22 different nurses. But one nurse did serious time at Camp Wanocksett, and she has agreed to come back during the global pandemic to be our camp nurse, and that's Nurse Rebecca Lantry. And I'm very pleased that she's on the call, and she'll be with us for the first 6 weeks of camp. And then Nora Ann and Matt Failer will each do a week. And so we have a returning group of nurses, unlike any that other camps in New England have. And so although I love getting a new grad at camp to get some great experience, this is a year to have 3 veteran nurses, and the first one up, Rebecca Lantry. So we'll get Becky in here in just a minute, but let's talk about the process arriving at camp. Normally, I'm in the parking lot and I meet you, and there's a lot of excitement, and there are hundreds of people moving around, and we are looking to get you to come to our trading post to spend money. We're going to do a little bit different. We're going to decentralize the check-in process, meaning that troops will be green lighted to go directly to their sites with some vehicles and some trailers and some trucks, and we'll get you in your site, and we'll have someone come out there, and we're going to go over with you a group of questions that maybe you've heard those questions before, but how are you feeling? Any symptoms? I think there's 8 of them. We'll go over those with everyone in the site. We'll do a pre-check out there. You'll get nested, and then we'll move you down to the health lodge, and we're not going to put you in a line of 100 folks at the health lodge. We'll do it in a way that is a bit more smooth. We're also looking for your parents to come and drop off the scout and then head home and let us do an orderly check-in process without all the fanfare. We will have the trading post open in some way, and we'll figure that out. It might be outside, but we do not want a lot of activity in the parking lot. We want people to get checked in so we can get those swim checks done and we can start our time together at Camp Wanocksett. But it will be decentralized, and we'll probably start earlier than we normally do. I'm seeing the first troops arriving more like 11, 12. Now, camp won't be open and some staff will still be returning, but I'll be there and we'll get you out to your site and get you organized so that we can rock and roll a bit earlier. So we're decentralizing the check-in. Let's go to the next slide. So this is going to be the challenge. Try to stay with me on this. Everyone's going to get tested before they come to camp. And there's a lot of locations, and we'll share with you different places where you can get a free test. A lot of the Rite Aids and different pharmacies can get you a free test. But then you're going to come to camp, and we're going to do a test at camp. And we're looking at two options. One is a pool test where we test the entire cohort and we drive it down to a company in Cambridge that's pretty well known, and they turn it around in 24 hours and they tell us that everyone is great and they are negative, or they tell us that somebody in the pool is positive, and then we have to make some decisions about getting everyone tested again. But remember, you'll all have been tested before, and if you followed the guidelines, in theory, we should be in good shape. But the first 36 hours that you're in camp, we're really going to have to enforce those 6-foot boundaries. And the reason we're going to have to do this is that if we have a positive case, we want to preserve as many scouts as possible because we do not want close contacts with that potential positive scout. Collins, you and I have talked about this multiple times. Give me a thumbs up if I'm explaining this properly. Until we get a clean bill of health from the cohorts, we've got to be careful, because the worst case scenario is that somebody in my son's troop 1 Islington test positive, and they've all made s'mores the night before, and they were all gathered around the campfire up at Apache, and they are all close contacts. And that would then cause us to have to send some other folks home. So that first 24, 36 hours, we've got to be very careful and use our social distancing. After that, the adult leaders in the troop can make some decisions, because within the cohorts, there is the ability to relax in the campsite. You're almost considered a family. You're cohabitating. You're in the campsite. You're a cohort. You can sit next to each other and eat next to each other. You're living in the campsite. Potentially, we could be sleeping head to toe after that first 24 hours. If you sleep head to toe beforehand and someone pops, well, then someone may be going home in theory, although it's close to 6 feet. But there's that's basically the gist on that. Coming to camp, it's going to be up to the troop whether you want to carpool. But if you carpool and there's a positive test, it could be a problem. And so we're really looking to protect the scouts and their time at camp. Let's go to the next slide. Is Neville frozen? Who's running the deck, Neville?
I think he is. I'll pull up a screen share one moment.
I'm not frozen.
You look frozen. You look great, by the way. All right, you're frozen. He's out in Seattle. Daily screening of all people. Collins, is this one yours?
Sure.
Take the top one, I'll take the bottom.
All right, so in your campsite, we're going to be providing the unit with a contactless thermometer. That's, again, New Hampshire camp requirement. Each morning, a unit leader, designated unit leader, is going to be checking in with everybody. How you feeling? Taking temperatures. How you feeling compared to yesterday? Did you have a good night's sleep? You drinking plenty of water? Kind of general public health questions, and recording that information on a form that will provide you along with taking temperatures. So again, just one of our mitigation layers.
And like I said, we're recommending single person tenting at least for the first 24 hours, but we believe the requirements in the state of New Hampshire do allow head to toe sleeping in a tent, but we'll talk more as we get closer. But there's a risk involved if a scout tests positive and they were in a tent, that other scout could be going home. And so we've got to be really careful. So let's go to the next one. Keep rolling. Water bubblers will be closed for the summer. Water bottles, super important. We're looking at a plan where each troop has a shower stall. It's for that troop and for those cohorts, and it's cleaned on a regular basis by an adult. We're not looking to have 16-year-olds pressure washing the showers. We're looking to have an adult in the Ranger division and potentially an outside company coming in once a week to do some serious deep cleaning. But we are looking to have the adults cleaning the showers on a regular basis. Let's keep rolling.
I'm rolling.
All right, is this still mine? All right, so we arrive on Sunday and we're looking for one person to present us with an envelope with all of the negative tests. And we're not looking to do this through the health lodge. The nurses are going to be asking questions and checking the scouts in medically, but they're not going to be the ones looking for the negative test. That will have a list of all the folks in the troop with the negative test prior to camp. We will conduct a PCR test at camp. That's not the deep tickle, right, Collins? That's just a swab around the nose. We get it driven to Cambridge. We're not waiting for FedEx or couriers. We want this information as fast as possible. We drive it down to Cambridge. We drop it off, and we get the information. When that information comes back and we report back to the troop that everyone in the cohort is negative, at that point, the adult leadership has the ability to still be within the Granite State guidelines, but to let the hair down a little bit in the site and to relax a little bit and to make some decisions. Now, remember, that is a troop decision. We're not going to be announcing that it's a free for all and we're all safe and you can do what you want. The troops and the troop level at the committee level can make the decision in the site whether they want to be wearing the mask all the time and whether they want to be a little bit more relaxed. But that is still within the guidelines because remember, there will have been 2 tests, 2 PCRs for everyone in that campsite. There's a lot of questions. I'm not reading all those questions, but we'll get them in a little bit. I'm already seeing some questions, and I've already had one this morning about adults coming in midweek. We don't know if we're going to be allowed to do that. We are talking about it. We're trying to come up with a plan, but right now we're looking for adults to stay the entire week. Now, the good news is we are on the cusp of having high-speed wireless in the boathouse. And so we might be calling that the Wanocksett Business Center, where you could be conducting your work from camp while looking at the Thorndike and the beautiful $1 million homes on the other side of the lake, and having a great time at Camp Wanocksett. So we are looking to beef up our internet. We wish we could have done this in the past, but there was a copper line coming up the road. This is something that they brought to the area, but we are looking for adults to stay in camp for the entire week. We are investigating whether we could do a swap over on Wednesday and whether that would still be within the guidelines and whether we could have folks tested on Wednesday. And, but we're not sure how quickly we could get those results and how that would work. So we are working to be as flexible as possible, but right now we would love to have adults be in camp for the week. All right, let's roll. So the dining services, we have a professional company that will be with us this year. I think this will be the 22nd year. And we are not going to have the same dining hall program that we have had in the past. We are going to have quality food and plenty of it. You know, we need to make sure that we keep up the standards of the food. The chef has been working with the dietitian, and we have been working with cafe services, and we have some different ideas. But what the vision is, around the perimeter of the dining hall, multiple carports and picnic tables, and the 40 by 60 carport, and potentially another 40 by 60 carport, and then in the dining hall, some seating. But the idea is that we do a modified cafeteria style with multiple lines. I do not want a long line where the first person has finished the meal and the last person has not yet got the meal. I am resisting this. Cafeteria style, to me, it's not the vision that I have for what camp looks like. And I don't know if it gets us, I don't want lines of kids. I don't think that gets us social distancing. It does not get us So we're looking at a modified style with multiple lines, and some food could be packaged up and brought to the table, and then it's delivered to the folks at the table, but it's individually wrapped. And so it's kind of a hybrid, but we want to make sure that we have plenty of space. And if troops want to be flexible, if you are the troop in Merrimack and you want to walk up to Merrimack with your food, great. If you want to walk to Iroquois, clever. If you want to go to the boathouse and across up on the woods and we put up a platform in the field next to the dining hall, we cut that grass and we do some shrub removal and we get some sun in there. We put a couple carports and over by the propane tank and the western overlook around the perimeter. But whatever we do, we have to be ready for rain. 3 meals a week typically involve rain. And so we need to be able to get meals out all the time. We need to be able to get coffee to our adult leaders and desserts and fruit and salad and everything that we have in our meals. And so it's going to be different, but it's the requirements of the state of New Hampshire, and we're working to eat by cohort, modified cafeteria, multiple locations, and we're not going to pack the dining hall like we have in the past. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, we may do some multiple seatings. We may do some grab and go options where you take some meals to your site if it's all packaged up. But we've got to wash our hands. We've got to sanitize all the time. That's good, minus COVID. I think it was Becky who was involved in building the sinks around the dining hall to help us remember that before you go to the dining hall to throw down a great quick chick on a bun, you have to wash your hands. And so it's key all the time to wash hands and sanitize. And we'll step it up even more this year. Let's go to the next slide. All right, let's have Becky say hello, but can we open up her mic? Rebecca Lantry, folks, incredibly highly experienced camp nurse. She retired last year from the hospitals and she took a year off. And then she says, I'm ready to come back. I'm like, what about that beautiful house in Maine you built? And she's like, no, I'm ready to take a break from that beautiful house and come be the camp nurse. She's been at camp the last 2 days and she called me with a laundry list of things that must be done to bring up the health lodge to the standards and also about the area around camp. So Becky, say hello to our folks, 2021 adult leaders. Are we able to unmic her or mic her?
You should be able to unmute.
Becky, you can unmute if you can, maybe. Give me a thumbs up. Yes, no, maybe.
Mute.
There you are.
Am I here?
Yes, you're on live.
I only see you and I don't see myself, so I'm probably really self-conscious about it. I'm really delighted to be back. Somehow, as you all probably know through this COVID thing, you just get this restlessness about you need to do something. And this is my way to do something, is that I just have to come back to the Boy Scouts and fix something instead of just wringing our hands and wondering when is this going to end. I'm proud to say that I've been vaccinated twice, as many of you also have, and I hope the rest of you can get there real quick. I think we can pull this off. I think we can have a great program, and we're all ready to put our minds to work to make this happen. So if there's any other questions,
don't go far, Becky. We're gonna have lots of questions, but thank you. That was well said. So we're looking to have an area outside the health lodge so that if a scout ever were to have COVID symptoms, they would not enter the health lodge. It would enter an area outside, open air, and we'd go through a screening. So if somebody has, a cut and they need to have that cleaned and well, of course, that would be right into the health lodge. But if somebody is having nausea or a headache or some type of symptom, we would have them stay outside. So to get into the health lodge, there'll be serious questions asked, and then you'll come on to the health lodge. State of New Hampshire requires us to have a separate area. If we have somebody who is suspected of being COVID, we have an area with their own bathroom and their own bed and a place to be away from the health lodge. So the health lodge can still rock and roll, but we would have an area for them. So the state of New Hampshire, and we've been working to come up with a separate area for triage as well as a separate area for isolation. So I think I got all those. We talked about the 3 nurses. Let's roll. All right, I'm going to hand it over to program, but not until I talk camp director's quick minute here. So my very good friend, the program director, 19 days ago, he got a new liver. His dad had given him a piece of his liver 24 years ago, and that served him very well from when he was a young scout. But that liver needed to get swapped out, and luckily his fiance is a doctor, and he's out in Seattle.
Do it.
What's that?
She's not the one that did it.
No, she did not do the surgery, but she kept me updated every couple minutes, so that was good. He had a 12-hour surgery, a new liver in the state of Washington, and what you're looking at is very different than what we were seeing a couple weeks ago. We are so happy that he'll be returning to camp with a new liver, and his assistant will be acting program director for week 1 and 2. She was the camp director at Split Rock. She is amazing. She has more camp experience than many of the camp directors in the region. And Rachel Zelli and Will Neville have quite a program put together. And what I've asked them is, yes, we have to modify what we do to live within the guidelines, but we cannot stop doing what we do in the sense of accommodating the troops and the scouts and giving them a tier 1 program where we meet their needs. And so we have to push to get the scouts what they want. And I'm just really happy that Will, you're looking as good as you are, and that you'll be back at some point this summer, maybe week 2. And Rachel, you got the helm for the first couple. So let's hand it over to program. I'm going to be quiet.
Yeah, and before we change slides, I'll just say Rachel and I are working eye to eye on developing the new program. So it's not going to matter who you get or what week you come. You're going to get the same high quality program week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So yeah, with that, let's go to the next slide.
So what you see here is the standard weekly grid that we've run for years up until COVID. And what you're going to see on the next slide is the grid that we are going with. And when we switch over to the next slide, you see that nothing really has changed in terms of grid. So you're still going to have 3 morning sessions, and we'll go into a little bit more detail about the flexibility of those sessions and the creative options we've come up with to help all of your scouts earn their merit badges and get all of their activities in that they want to earn, just like a typical summer. And the other big thing is that you'll see in the evening, we don't have things like Brown Sea Evening Adventure listed, but don't worry, we still will have all of those same type of activities. There's just, again, the keyword we're going to keep using for program is flexibility. You may see things on different days of the week, depending on which week you come. So we'll just be moving things around a little bit just so that your scouts can get the best program when they come, and they can get all of the offerings that they sign up for as well.
Next slide. And this is really just a simplified view of the day. Really nothing's changed. The only thing we've done is we made the merit badges and the patrol times generic, so that and we'll get into how scouts will register in just a moment, when scouts sign up for their badge preferences and their patrol time preferences, or, patrols are essentially cohorts and cohorts are essentially patrols. When they sign up for those preferences, someone's patrol time might be the second session at 10 a.m. rather than 11 a.m. If it gives us that flexibility to offer everybody what they want, if we can alter when we offer it a little bit. Like what Rachel was saying, we might offer 30 scouts at Brown Sea Evening Adventure on Monday and 30 more at Brown Sea Evening Adventure on Tuesday. Our staff is going to work harder this year than probably any year before, so that we can offer as much as we can, everybody the first choice in everything they want. It might be the year we have to ask for you to work with us a little bit, and certainly it will be with this new registration system, but it's, as Rachel said, flexibility is what we're going for here. Next slide. All right, so on Sunday, May 2nd, several forms are going to go out. These forms are going for you all to have your cohorts that are coming to camp list their badge preferences, patrol time preferences, and afternoon and evening activity preferences. Only for the afternoon and evening activities that require pre-sign-up. Free time will still be free. But for those of you who remember or who have been with us before, we offer fingerprinting merit badge as a just show up in the afternoon, open to all merit badge. We get 50 kids every, Thursday from 19 different troops coming down to handicraft for patrol time. for fingerprinting. Obviously, that's not going to work. So instead, for fingerprinting, if that cohort wants it, they'll select it on the form, and then we will slot it in for any time that we can find that works. There'll be a form for Lone Scouts. We'll get into Lone Scouts in just a minute. That's a little bit more finesse, and we've dedicated a whole slide to it, and a form for adult volunteers opportunities as well. Next.
So what you can expect to see in your email inbox on May 2nd is this cohort form. It will come in the form of a Google document. And what it will have, it will ask for your general troop information, what troop you're with, how many scouts you're bringing, just general information that you would give on a normal year as well. And then it's going to ask your top 6 merit badge choices for each of the cohorts. So you're going to let us know how many cohorts you have. We're looking ideally at cohorts. I think the top number is 15, and then at the smallest end would be 4. So just realistically thinking about it, we'll probably be seeing a lot of the younger scouts. Those will be your bigger cohorts. And then as you move up in age, we might get into smaller cohorts of about 4. So we'll also have, you'll be able to pick your top 10 patrol time activity choices, as well as rank free time merit badge choices that Will just talked about. So those will be things like fingerprinting, and then other free time activities of interest. And just to reiterate what Will said again, free time is not going to be 100% scheduled. If we schedule all of free time, we're going to wear these kids out by overscheduling them. They still need a little bit of free time built into their schedule. So we will only be scheduling the free time activities that they could be high demand, or just we have limited capacity for them as well.
All right, so the Lone Scout form. The guidance from the state says we are required to keep campers and cohorts whenever possible, which allows us this exemption. So who's it for? It's for single scouts in your unit who might be interested in the NOVA program, the COAT program, or BSA Guard, because obviously those are very highly specialized programs that probably won't attract a cohort's worth of people from each unit. That being said, if a cohort wants to sign up for those, great. And then also scouts that aren't demographically aligned with the rest of your unit. I've seen more than my share of units that are, a bunch of younger scouts and then 1 or 2 older scouts who are about to age out and are there to get citizenship in the world, first aid, and cooking, because that's what they need. And we still want to accommodate those scouts. So, of course, those scouts can sign up for being a lone scout. Who's it not for? It's not just for the, if you have a group of 13-year-olds and it's all going to be one unit, it's going to be very difficult for us to get cohorts their first choice if we just start making lone scouts from the one 13-year-old who couldn't agree with the rest of the cohort on which badges they wanted to offer. That's why we're setting this up to you well in advance on May 2nd, so that at a troop meeting or a unit meeting, hopefully we can finagle those and you guys can rank badges with those scouts in a way that is amicable. And it's also not for a group of 4 Boy Scouts who are going to the same program. Just because they're going to COPE or NOVA, if there's 4 of them, sign them up as a cohort. That'll make my life a lot easier. Next slide. Or Owen, any questions that I should cover now?
There's a lot. Well, here's a couple easy ones. Can cohorts span linked boys and girls troops?
I believe as long as people are sharing a site. So they're based on the way the state has it. Once again, we are an atypical camp for how these regulations are written. They are written for a walk-low type camp, where campers and staff are sleeping in cabins of 8 to 12 kids and are there all summer. That's not us. So our interpretation of it is, as long as they are in the same campsite, you can make a cohort out of whoever you want.
And clarification, so do all scouts need to take the same merit badges if they're in a cohort?
Yes. They will sign up for a badge as a cohort. And, we are trying to be as liberal, we're making it harder on ourselves by saying you can go down to 4. We're trying to be as liberal as this with you guys as possible because we know it's going to be a change. We know it's going to be tough. The guidelines say they can be as small as we want. They can be as big as we want. And so I think 4 and up is what we can reasonably accommodate as cohort sizes. Because if we start just doing buddy pairs, I can't realistically get people their first choices.
And Will, I'd like to kind of add a little bit of a why behind why we're really pressing the limited amount of lone scouts as well. So this isn't to make Will and my life any easier with scheduling. This is more about the quality of the program, because the difference between the lone scouts and the cohorts is the cohorts are operating as a family, so they're able to get closer than 6 feet together. They're able to work on activities together. When we look at those lone scout activities and merit badges, we're looking at 6 feet apart, max on no activities that they're working kind of close to each other and cooperatively on. So just looking at the best program possible that will be in the cohorts fashion. But again, we are offering this lone scouts just because we do want to acknowledge that there are some special programs like Nova and COPE that we want people to engage in. And we do want to acknowledge that there are some scouts that have that 1 merit badge left before they can get Eagle.
And for cohort purposes, program folks, and Collins, correct me if I'm wrong, a cohort could be in New Hampshire up to, they would like 10 to 15, but it could go up to 18, 20 if you include all the adults. So you could have a cohort up to 20, including the adults. But within that cohort, you could break that down into smaller groups for merit badges, correct? Like if you had 4 kids who need cooking and 5 kids who needed another badge, there is some flexibility within. What we are not looking for is we are looking to not have, a merit badge with kids from 10 of the 12 troops in camp. We are looking to limit the amount of exposure in those merit badges, so that if we're in a merit badge and you have 4 kids from one Groton sitting in one area of the handicraft and they're from the same cohort, a little ways over 6 feet away could be another cohort from 13 Pepperell and another group over in another area. So did I get that wrong, program people?
No, that's correct.
There's some flexibility here. Swimming merit badge can be done. You can be 6 feet. Your buddy could be from your cohort. The varsity swim team at Dedham High School just had a great season. The lifeguards can be 6 feet with a 7-foot reach pole, and we can get it done. Keep in mind that everyone is going to be tested twice. And so, we're going to be tested before we arrive. We're going to be tested when we get there. We're going to live within the guidelines of New Hampshire. We're going to get these kids the program. And Will, I don't know if I'm jumping in, but I'm seeing that the chat's exploding with lots of good questions. And I'm just looking at my chat. That's everyone, not the one that's going to Owen, which I couldn't imagine how much fun that must be. But we are going to open up other times during the day. So if you have 2 scouts that want a badge, but they don't have the whole cohort, we can be flexible. We can do things to get scouts the badges that they need and the experience they want. So I'm going to.
If you have something, a request that I hadn't thought of, something you want me to consider that I hadn't thought of, shoot me an email. If it takes, if we can get everybody happy in good sized cohorts and the 3 same badges, but that takes me sending a staff member out at during an evening program to your campsite to get 3 kids a merit badge that's not typically offered, I will do what I can to accommodate it. Rachel and I are going to work really hard to get everybody what they want. We're just going to be creative about times. We're going to be flexible with each other. And that's also why, this is our first year. This is the first and hopefully only year ever having to do this, which is why we're asking for 6 merit badge choices, 10 patrol time choices. Just because, if we maybe have to dip to the 6th patrol time choice, that might be likely. And I'm going to try to get everybody their top 3 merit badges, their top 5 patrol times, whatever. But I just never done this before. So we're asking for that little buffer and for your understanding and flexibility. All right, Rachel, is this next slide me or you?
So
Will, can I give you a question from the chat that I think is well written and kind of is where my mind is too? Are you ready for
Sure.
it?
Yeah.
Does a cohort have to choose all 3 of the same badges? Or if there's more than one cohort in one site, can they reorganize for each of the sessions? So you have a group from Andover, 75 Andover, there are 12 kids. Do they all have to be locked in for the 3 sessions, or could they be 4, 4, and 4 and reshuffle the deck for the second one, but they're from the same unit? Think about that. We'll come back to it later.
Yeah, let me think about it because I hadn't considered it, but let me think about it. And if I can't, I might have to look at the guidelines, and I might have to get back to it. It looks like Christine from 75 Andover.
Right. That's kind of the question that she wrote. She wrote that question better than the way I asked you. And so that's kind of my question in a better way. So let's keep rolling.
Yeah. So Rachel, is this me or you? I don't remember anymore.
It's me. No, you're good. So adult volunteer registration is also going to look a little bit different. This is going to be another Google form that you will get on May 2nd. So this is the why behind this is to help maximize everything a scout is able to do during their week that they are here. So this is just going to be simply an electronic version of the sign up that would usually have been in the boathouse every week. A few changes to this is that we may be reaching out to troops, even if they're not volunteered. If we see that maybe 20 people in their troop all want to go on the 5-mile hike, we may ask some of their volunteers to step up and volunteer for that hike with them just to help keep in the cohorts. And then another option that we've been talking about this year is for some of the merit badges that need to interview people of a certain occupation, we've talked about live Zoom meetings with them. And so this is something else that will be on the adult volunteer forum. If you're really, you love your job and you want to talk to maybe more than 1 week's worth of troops, you can do that too. You can sign up for more weeks and do a virtual format as that as well.
Next slide. So bonuses that have just arisen from this new way of signups that we have to do. So normally we'd be making a Brown C class out of scouts from 3, 4, 5, 6 different units. Now I'm going to actually work my hardest to keep Brown C to single unit sessions so that we can work on highly customized Brown C classes for what your scouts need for what they have worked on in your unit. So if it was, oh, we have a group of new scouts, but they've done this, this, and this for scout and tenderfoot, they need this and this for tenderfoot and second class. We can now customize Brown C classes, know that before the week begins, and build a class for those scouts, knowing what requirements they'll need so we don't spend time talking about it Monday. We'll just jump right in with a really customized Brown C class for what your scouts need and what you want us to cover. Maybe you have the capacity to cover something at your meeting, but you want us to cover something else, happily. So the afternoon badge signups, like fingerprinting that I talked about, if the cohort goes to handicraft during the afternoon and they didn't sign up for fingerprinting in May or June, but they decide, hey, you know what, we do want to do fingerprinting, ask. If we can do it, the answer is yes. It's going to depend on staffing and how we've allotted that staff's time. And they might say, yes, sit down, we will do fingerprinting with you guys right now. They might say, can you come back Thursday? Or, if it's Friday already and I haven't stuck to the gills, they might say, sorry guys, we will try to circle back with you maybe tonight, but it's not going to happen this year. And then the final thing that I want to offer everybody is suggest a morning merit badge, where there will be a form for merit badges in the AM, or really the session merit badges, 1, 2, 3, or 4, where if you guys say, like, hey, our scouts really want to do trucking merit badge, is that a thing you have a capacity to offer? And if it is, we would like it to be our, make it our second merit badge choice. I will go to my staff, find out if there is somebody with the skills and the knowledge necessary to offer that badge. And if there is, I will offer it to you. happily. We couldn't do that before because I couldn't just put badges on the grid because everyone's time was allotted for. But with this model, really the only consumable I'm working with is staff time. It doesn't matter what was offered first, second, or third period anymore. So I can say, yeah, we'll do trucking merit badge, and I'll put you in for trucking merit badge first period. But once again, only if I think we can offer it in a high quality way that adheres to the badge. I'm not just going to say yes because you asked. I'm only going to say yes if I feel like we can offer it in a high quality way. Next slide.
So the logistics of all of these pre-registration forms is that we want to get them to you soon enough. That's why we're aiming for May 2nd, so that you have time to sit down with your troops while your troops are still meeting before summer break to present all of this information to them. Now, I saw a question about who creates the cohorts. So that will be you guys with your troops creating the cohorts and deciding which cohorts. We will not do that with you. We don't know your troops' interests or merit badge interests. So that will be something you will do. And then the troops, the scouts themselves will receive a paper copy or an electronic copy of a similar form where they can sit down with their cohorts for the summer and they can decide which merit badges they want. They will then give those forms to their adult leader who will input that into the official one that will be sent to us. Now, I did see another question about May 2nd being early because not all scouts are registered. That's okay. We are just getting the form to you early. It does not need to be filled out May 2nd. It just needs to be submitted no later than the day of the pre-camp meeting. So you guys still have tons of time to fill it out. We just want to make sure we give you all of that information before school lets out for the summer.
Yeah, and just one more thing I want to mention. When you return it to us, it's not a land grab. It's not first come, first serve on the staff's time, on what's available. We are going to look at people's preferences. We are going to look at staff ability. We are going to look at everything and create a schedule for everyone that tries to get everybody everything they want, if at all possible. So don't fret about getting it in early. We will look at all of the forms for week 5, 10 days in advance, and then make a schedule for everybody, which we will give out to everyone in the days prior to camp. So don't worry about when you get it in. It is not a plant your flag in the ground to get shotgun merit badge. It is not a plant your flag in the ground to get game design. If I have a staff member who I know used to work in handicraft and handicraft's super popular, one week, guess where they're working that week? They're working in handicraft. All right, so free time. It's still free. Unless we have a cohort assigned to a badge, fingerprinting at 3 p.m. on Monday, they are welcome to wander about camp as a cohort. They can go to Scoutcraft and do tomahawk throwing. They can go to Brown Sea and make hobo pies. They can go to the field sports and do whatever they want.
But even that being said, Will, even that being said, if a group in the afternoon is doing fingerprinting, that would not shut down the entire handicraft area.
No, absolutely not. All areas will be open in the afternoon for free time all week. The only thing that might limit that is actual space. The climbing tower can only have so many people in the climbing tower area. But we also won't allow one group to monopolize the climbing tower for 3 hours. Our staff will be allowed to use their discretion to help rotate and get people through that process. I think, as we said in our first meeting, 100% of our senior staff are returning staff members, and I have the highest confidence in them to deliver this.
Can I interject for a second? Andrew, get ready for this question. When we're talking about cohorts, we are talking about the group that comes from the community and camps together in the campsite. And so if there are 16 scouts from Groton and 3 adults, there are 19 in that cohort. But there will be smaller cohorts for some of the merit badges based on scheduling purposes, because not all 19 of those will be taking all the same badges, but the idea is to keep groups together. Will, am I right on this?
Yes.
So in some sense, there's the cohort, the group from the community that eats and lives and camps together. But then for program purposes, there may be smaller cohorts within that. But they all live and eat together, and the restrictions, once they all test negative for the second time in that campsite, they have more freedom because they're from the same cohort / family community. And so that's where we are.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Collins, correct me if I'm wrong, with the one caveat being that troops over 20 in size will have to reduce, it might have to be a group of 12 or one cohort and another group of 12 or another cohort. And they almost have to act as two different, they just stay 6 feet apart, even in their campsites, that 12 and that 12.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. Once again, we're not inventing any wheels out here. We are reading the guidelines and trying to adapt them to an atypical summer camp.
Right. And we have seen the state lighten up already on different things. Andrew said once, I think I could argue with them and say twice now we've seen them lighten up on different things, and there could be more coming. And we'll share that with you. And we're not looking to be, more than the state. We're looking to live within the guidelines of the BSA and the state of New Hampshire. And I know I had a couple emails today, folks who are looking at Massachusetts. I'm going to say it one more time. You are not going to see much different in a Massachusetts camp. In some ways, we may be a little better off. Massachusetts may be a little better off. I think they have a different type of test that they'll allow. But other than that, our cohorts have more flexibility. So it's, I'm glad you're camping with us. But New Hampshire is not more strict, just different.
Yep.
Awesome.
Rachel, is it you and me?
So field trips and visitors. Just because this year we have more regulations, we are not sacrificing any of our badges. We're not offering partials on something that we used to offer complete on just because there is a field trip that we could do in the past that we no longer can do this year. With current state regulations, we are not able to come into contact with the community. So that really limits our ability to take field trips. But we do have other options, thankfully. We are calling, we'll be doing what's called virtual field trips. Now, as a teacher myself, that word kind of makes me roll my eyes a little bit because in the education setting, a lot of times that's just like watching a YouTube video or a live feed of a seal at a zoo. But with our virtual field trips, they're going to be specific to Camp Wanocksett. So we are working with a few different organizations, and what they are going to do for us is they are going to record a tour of their facility, a question and answers, something very specific to Wanocksett that Wanocksett can only lay eyes on and will fit really well into those requirements of the merit badges as well. And with some badges, we're even looking at the offering of a live stream after those pre-recorded field trips where we may have like a firefighter that we can do a Q&A on, just so we get more information as well. So it's not only a field trip at that point, but an interview with someone in the field as well, which is something cool and something that we maybe even haven't had in the past, depending on where we've gone as well. And then with that, visitors also need to be limited as well. So what I talked about with the adult registration form, we might be seeing some of those interviews that took place in person in a Zoom setting this year as well.
Next, program cooking. This question I saw a lot. And once again, the regulations are a little vague on this because once again, we're pretty atypical. Not a lot of camps have cooking merit badge where they ask kids to cook 3 meals for themselves. So for free and patrol time, if the scouts are cooking, all items are going to be pre-portioned. If we use hobo pies, for example, they'll get 2 pieces of pre-saran wrapped bread, as well as a pre-portioned peanut butter and a pre-portioned fluff or Nutella or whatever it is they want. They'll be able to spread that with a disposable knife, put it in the hobo pie maker, and make their hobo pie. If the staff is cooking, then from ingredients through serving, we will be the only ones touching anything, and it will be much more of a demonstration. Gloves will be used, sanitized cookware will be used, and all eating will be distanced. So you can, just like when we're at or around the dining hall, you can eat with your cohort, but your cohort will be sitting distance from anybody else. Cooking merit badge. So since we will be ideally having most of these done by cohort, the option for this will be meals with the breakfast, lunch, and dinner that are required will be prepared in your site with 1 or 2 staff members. For those of you who've been there in the past, this is significantly different than the 30, 40, 50 person feast that was cooked in Scoutcraft in years prior. And quite frankly, I think honestly it'll be better. It'll be a much more hands-on experience for those 5, 6, 7, 8 scouts. Ideally, if you have the ability to bring your own cooking stoves, or if for your scouts to build a fire in advance, that would be great. But obviously, if you don't have the ability or don't have the equipment, we will bring it up from Scoutcraft. We'll just need to know what you have in advance so we can appropriately schedule our camp supplies to units for their cooking time. Which, if we have 6 different cooking merit badges running, that'll just become a little tricky about when we have different people cook different meals. It might be during evening program rather than dinner that you're cooking dinner, just to allow for that. Which is why, once again, the flexibility thing we talked about before. Collins, next slide. Miscellaneous. Okay, some things are just automatically going to be on your schedule, guys. The opening and closing campfire, it's just going to be on there. The BSA requires I offer a chapel service to everybody. It's just going to be on your schedule. And there's a few other things like that. The OA call-out ceremony, etc. If you have questions about any of those, shoot me an email. We'll be asking everyone and expecting everyone to hand sanitize between activities. I think we've talked about cohort-style programming, and I believe we actually already covered 6 feet between cohorts. But if we have 2 small cohorts or a cohort and a lone scout in a merit badge or any program, we'll have to keep. While the cohorts can be sitting close to each other, or the members of the cohort can be sitting close to each other, those 2 cohorts will be at least 6 feet apart. Unfortunately, the guidelines tell us to strictly limit visitors. So unfortunately, we will not be able to host a parent night this year. Bringing in an extra 300 people to camp is not strictly limiting visitors by any sense of the imagination. And also, this year we're going to be adding a few items to the packing list that I'll reiterate in an email I'll send everybody. So first will be a backpack, something simple and drawstring that every scout can carry a mess kit, a small mess kit, really just like a really wide-bodied mug that you could either put a cobbler in or drink a hot cocoa out of. Just something really wide-bodied, and a folder. The folder is so that on Sunday, we will hand every scout an itinerary saying, for your cohort, you're going to this first period, this second period, this third period, this fourth period, and here are your open program. On Monday, nothing scheduled. Go have fun, go have your open program. Tuesday, you have fingerprinting. Wednesday, you have chest merit badge in the afternoon. Thursday, nothing scheduled, and Friday, something else. But the times you're not scheduled, go have fun. We will hand physical copies of everything. And then day of, if necessary, we will give people adapted schedules for weather or other considerations that come up that we need to adapt people's schedules for. So we might say, that Tuesday schedule and the blue piece of paper we gave you, check it out. Here's a Tuesday schedule on a green piece of paper. This is your new schedule for the day. Next, yep. Once again, if you guys send any question to info, it'll go to all of us, so please feel free. And then if you have specific operations questions, Danny can, or Andy can take those. And I will take all program questions. And we'll get you I'll send you all an email as well. That'll also give you Rachel's email.
All right, but we're going to take a few questions now, correct?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's chat master. Before we get going, unless I wasn't clear earlier, we are required to have everyone have 2 tests. We are looking to have your first test not cost you any money, and we're going to give you links to places where they're provided. We are working to get funding from both the state of New Hampshire and potentially federal money to help offset the COVID test that will happen at camp. We spoke to the company, Collins, I don't want to get it wrong, CIC out of Cambridge, Somerville, and they are looking into helping with funding of the test. If we do the pool test, we're looking at $10, $11 per person. If we are not able to do the pool test, we're looking at $50 per person. This is not in our budget. Our budget, we are not adding a fee for the change in how we're doing food, even though we're paying more for how we're doing food. And we're not adding any fee for how we're cleaning camp and sanitizing at a different level. But the COVID test fee is getting passed on if we have to have a fee. And we can talk more about if there's hardships, but I simply couldn't run the camp with the budget that we have and pay for that fee.
I think it's important too to mention, Danny, that we're already exploring a pretty wide alumni outreach campaign to reach out to our donor base to say we've got a lot of scouts who have been cooped up for 12 months. Can you buy a patch or make a donation to help offset the testing fee this summer? So the testing program.
And we're not looking for the testing fee to be paid by early bird. We're looking for that to be later because we are looking to try to figure out how we could honestly get the taxpayers to pay for it somehow. I mean, that's really where it's coming from, right? I mean, the Biden administration is throwing serious money at this. And if we can get a slice of it for a nonprofit camp to get kids outside, what the heck? Let's take some questions. We're now at 1 hour and 13 minutes, and these folks have need a break from this, but let's rapid fire with some questions. Chat master.
Cool. We have a lot of questions, and I'm just going to roll through them pretty quick. And if any more come in, feel free to put it in the chat. I am watching that. But the first one is for Collins. Collins, a lot of people have seen the recent update to New Hampshire guidelines saying that masks are no longer required. Will they be required at camp regardless of the guidelines?
Yep, we will be requiring them. You probably saw the announcement from Governor Sununu. They're simply lifting the statewide mandate. That's still up to local municipalities and frankly private businesses of what they want to do. We think that it's in the best interest of everyone to wear masks, so we're going to be wearing masks.
Next question: is a vaccine required for adults or anyone or not at all?
At this time, there's no requirement for vaccines. In fact, the latest New Hampshire standards specifically mention that vaccines do not exclude any of the regulations. That may change, but I don't foresee a requirement of vaccines.
Awesome. And if someone was to get a vaccine, is that something that they should include in their physical with the card or a copy of it?
Yep, you could attach it, just a photocopy of it.
Awesome. And if somebody is vaccinated, do they still need to get tested on pre-arrival and at their arrival at camp?
Yes. Again, at the moment, vaccines don't exclude you from any of the protocols, including mask wearing, social distancing, or testing.
Cool. Do people need to still drop off their medical? Can people still drop off their medical forms at the health lodge a week early or something like that?
Say that question again.
If somebody had their stack of health forms for their camp, can they still bring that to the health lodge a week earlier or whatnot?
Yeah, if there's a year for you to get your stuff together and not put that on our nurse, you will be the last troop to enter the health lodge on that Sunday. And you'll be in a holding pattern until you get your health check done. The medical forms at Camp Wanocksett are required to be in 10 days before. Now, if one form comes in late, that is different. But if you arrive on Sunday, it only happened twice last year out of 100 troops. So this should not be the year to try it again. We check all this stuff out in advance. We go through it, we pre-check it. The nurse checks it at a meeting the night that you are at camp, and then we check it again. And so please, folks, we're putting in serious amount of time in preparation. Please track those forms down. And so if at all possible, your med forms are in early.
Will these slides be made available afterwards? Just the slides, not the, I know the video recording will be, will the slides be?
Yep, we're going to do a couple things. I know Will has his May 2nd date for the program stuff that he's going to be sending out along with Rachel. We're going to be sending out, once the video is done, a link to the video. We'll include a link to the slide deck. And we're also going to itemize out kind of the timeline, the dates. You know, this is early bird, this is your 10 days out, stuff like that. So we'll itemize all that stuff in the slide deck as well.
Awesome. And if a scout maybe tests positive a week before camp or something like that, something comes up with the family, are refunds available for the scout?
Yes.
Great. Will, one for you or Rachel. What is going on at the waterfront? How will that work?
Yeah, so the guidelines specifically mention that mask wearing is not required for swimming and other aquatic activities. So those will also be the classes where we truly try to keep them to single cohort or single, unit classes so that we don't have to have those kids socially distanced. It just becomes difficult for a guard to watch a group of 3 over here, another group of 6 that are 8 feet away from them over here, another group over here. It's also difficult to maintain those distances when you're treading water. So for swimming merit badges, we will absolutely going to try and keep them to single cohorts because mask wearing is not expected at a waterfront in New Hampshire. For boating merit badges, we will likely not keep them to a single cohort. We'll just keep buddies on a boat. They will be required that they're in a unit together. I hope that answers the person's question.
There was a question about how do we find out if we are approved for the week we requested? How do we find out what week we're going in?
Email me. We went through this already at the last meeting and we reshuffled the deck and pretty much everyone was where they thought they were. But shoot me an email if you're wondering, or Andrew Collins, if you're wondering what week you are in.
Awesome. We had a question if tests are free. We talked about that a little bit. There are lots of places to find testing in both Massachusetts and New Hampshire. It's pretty widespread at a lot of the bigger pharmacies, as well as mass testing sites at your local health center or something like that.
That's prior to arrival. Prior to arrival, we believe there still will be stop the spread testing in Massachusetts and lots of ability to get a test. The test at camp is done by a private company and it's on-site testing, and they're hitting us with a charge for that. And we were on a call 3 days ago, and I was pushing to negotiate that price down. Collins will attest that I was doing my best, but we're somewhere between pool testing, 11 per person, and $50 a person. So my cell phone going off, Fritz Weatherby's ringtone. So we're looking, now that does not, we're gonna eat the $800 setup charge, the $200 lane charge for the scanner and the barcode reader. We're eating all that. But the testing fee itself, we gotta pass on. We could eat the other $1,600 in fees, but the fee itself, we gotta pass on, and hopefully we'll go with the $11 one and we'll get through this. And next year we won't ever talk about testing again.
Great. And on the topic of testing, can camp help troops organize a troop testing day, or is that something troops should go out on their own and figure out themselves?
We're going to give you links to places where you can get tested, but we're not going to organize your troop testing. I don't want to say I can do something I can't do, but we'll provide links to where they are.
Awesome. Collins, there was a question about that online screening tool that happens before camp. Who monitors that? Is that troop leadership or is that the camp staff?
I believe at this moment it's going to be a combination of both. I'm working with a couple of alumni who deal with data, big data for a living, and we're looking for an easy to use solution for parents and scouts to check in on their phone or on a laptop or Chromebook once a day. Not quite sure what it looks like yet, but we're gonna make it as easy as possible for folks.
Awesome. Neville, is tubing still available during free time?
Yeah, that will likely be one of the activities that you have to pre-sign up for because it's going to be very space limited. It just, we only have so many boats and so many tubes and so much time. So have your scouts put that on the form. If the boat's not running, we will do everything we can to, if your scouts head down and the boat isn't running with a tube behind it, they can ask and we'll do it for them. But I have a feeling it's going to be very popular.
Tubing by cohort, correct?
What's that?
Tubing by cohort.
Yeah, tubing by cohort and sign up for it in advance when you get the form on the second. But, get the form in 10 days before. Once again, it's not a land grab for tubing.
Awesome. Collins, this one's for you. That pre-camp test, where is that going? Who is it sent to and when?
So we're going to ask that the summer camp coordinator, who is organizing the week of camp, help collect all of the paper versions of those tests. Normally, I've been tested 3 or 4 times in my line of work. You get an email or you get a message to say log in and you can see the testing result. We're going to ask that those get printed out and then someone in the unit coordinator, collect those when everyone gets to camp and organize them so that when they get to the health lodge or the COVID testing area, those can get turned into everybody. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, and I see a little bit more confusion in the chat. To be clear with everybody, there are 2 tests. One happens before your arrival at camp and one happens at your arrival at camp. You are responsible for administering your pre-arrival test and bringing that result with you, and the test at camp we get for you and get your results for you.
Right, and I see that I confuse people when I say pass on the test. We are hoping that you get a free test before you arrive at camp, but the test at camp has to be paid for by the troops, by the units, by the adults. Everyone gets tested. We're hoping it's $11 and not the $50 option. And we're hoping to find funding to help pay for this from either the state or the federal government. And for those scouts who cannot afford this, we're looking to sell a patch and to raise some money. But that cost essentially is in the hands of the scout attending or the troop for the adults. Is that clear, Collins?
There's a question about low risk behaviors and what that means kind of before camp. So if like a scout is involved in maybe a baseball team, is that a low risk behavior?
We'll send out some guidelines for what low risk means, and folks will have to review them and determine whether they believe that's low risk. This is self-monitoring.
When a parent is driving up to drop their scout off, do they stay for the check-in still, or should they go home immediately?
The only parents that should stay for the check-in are parents of a scout with some medical condition where they have to have contact with the nurse and have a discussion. We really need to have parents drop off and head home. Remember, these parents are not tested. All the adults are tested. All the scouts are tested. Those parents are a liability to the operation and the troop. And so we need to get them on their way home. Collins, is that right? Drop them off, move them in, move them out. Let's get program started.
Awesome. We had a lot of questions about where will they fill their water bottles if we're removing the water bubblers. There are still lots of places to fill your water bottle. There are hose spigots. You can fill them in the sink. It is actually the same water.
Right. We have incredible
bubbler.
Incredible clean water from 150 feet below the parking lot is the best water around. We're just not going to have the kids slurping off the metal stainless steel bubblers. So they're going to fill their water.
Every single area has a water cooler.
Mm-hmm. Can a scout come late on Sunday or Monday if they had a soccer game Sunday morning?
Not good. On a case by case, talk to me, but really we don't have a mechanism for a testing after they arrive. The state of New Hampshire says everyone gets tested upon arrival. That car is heading south. As soon as we get everyone done on Sunday, we're going to deliver it to what do they call it, the Broad down
Road
in
Institute. Yep.
Yeah, and so we don't have that mechanism in place. If there's a change in the guidelines or we have the potential for another test and we're not there yet. We don't have it. I don't want to say we have it if we don't have it. the idea is you arrive on Sunday and everyone gets tested and it comes back clean and we start the program and rah, rah, rah. So not a hard no, but it's close to it.
There's still a couple questions about adults arriving or leaving midweek. Collins, what if an adult came on Sunday? Could they leave midweek on Wednesday and just not return?
Yes, you can leave. You just can't come back.
Awesome. Someone had heard that New Hampshire required a doctor at the campsite. Is that correct?
No.
Awesome. Will, Rachel, this one's for you. You've gotten off easy. How will the campfire work? Will anything change?
Yeah,
Yes.
so we're playing with a few different ways, and how it's going to work, or how we're thinking about it working, is every night we have a campfire. So that's going to be our Sunday nights and our Friday nights. We are going to have multiple campfires. So we'll have half of camp. We're still playing around with the location. So let's say half of camp in the amphitheater and the other half of camp in the OA field or the main field, so that we can split them up. We can social distance. Cohorts will be 6 feet apart. And you'll have half the staff at your campfire on Sunday night. And then the staff will switch for Friday night. So everyone will end up seeing the same campfire. Just some people will see it Sunday, some people will see it Friday, but we still will be doing a campfire.
Awesome. All right, Rachel, another quick one. Sunset Summit, yes or no?
Yes, we will be doing Sunset Summit. What we are thinking right now is it definitely will involve masks. So we just really want to keep that the health part of it into consider this year more than ever, and that they will be wearing a mask the whole entire way up. We might have multiple cohorts together. There is a slight chance that we'll run into the community, but that's probably going to be very slim. We're going to look at different ways in and out of the mountain to limit that exposure to community as well, but is 100% happening.
And 2 more, the 5-mile hike and the mile swim.
Yeah, so the 5-mile hike is happening as well. That one's even easier than the Sunset Summit, just because it is more on local property. We're really not going to be exposed to community more than a car driving by. With that 5-mile hike, naturally in years past, you're going to see distance between scouts anyways as the hike goes on. So we're just really going to enunciate on that this year. And if there's multiple cohorts doing it, we can 100% do it. They'll just be more than 6 feet apart.
Awesome. You're done. Over to Danny and
Should do
Andy.
the mile swim. Maybe do the mile swim.
Oh, mile swim.
Yeah, so we'll be doing the mile swim again. And what we're looking at for that, again, what we see naturally is within even the first 10 minutes is scouts are even 20 feet apart. But the biggest areas of concern is that start time. So we're just going to be looking at possibly start time, so you don't have a bunch of scouts at the dock at the same time, and just making sure that they keep their distance while swimming as well. But we don't foresee that being a problem.
Awesome. And same thing with the triathlon?
Yeah.
Awesome. And if a scout, this isn't for Rachel, for Danny and Andy, if a scout is coming back-to-back weeks, maybe 1 week they're with their troop, the next week they're with Provo, do they still need that pre-arrival test?
Well, they've already had it. We gave it to them basically. So when they arrive for their first week, we give them a test, and then they leave, and then they come back and we give them another test. So we provided both tests is what Collins and I talked about. Correct, Collins?
Yeah, the New Hampshire guidelines require that anyone staying in camp longer than a week has to get tested 5 to 7 days after their initial arrival to camp. So a scout coming back Provo next week would simply get their follow-up test on that Sunday.
Right. Just behave on that.
Much like the staff are also going to be tested every week. Right.
But just behave on that 24 hours off, and it's that 24 hours off. They should not be going to a rager.
How will daily medications be managed? Will that be changing at all?
It will. And Becky and I talked about this 3-4 hours ago, and she had incredible ideas about how we're going to do it. And we'll talk more as we get closer. But the troop will play a key role in making sure that scouts get meds, and there will be some meds that are prepackaged and given to the troop to help make sure they get their meds. But there'll be a med tent near the dining hall, and we'll chase them down. And Becky's a master of chasing down meds. If you ever watched Becky chase down young Will Neville to take his anti-rejection drugs for his second liver. It was a fun thing to watch. So don't go against Becky. So
All the good it did.
we'll have a plan. What?
Nothing.
That,
Can siblings or close friends that are in a bubble share tents?
yes, but like I said earlier, if that first night, if we get through that first night, I would feel even better once we have a completely clear test for everyone in the group. Because if they share a tent that first night and one of them tests positive, I don't know, reading the guidelines, what that means for the other scout. Is that right, Collins?
In interpretation of the guidelines right now is that other scout would also be going home.
So this is where we started, we start to chase our tail. Once we get a clean bill of health for everyone in the cohort, get out the s'mores and, at some level in the campsite, we can go back to the ways it was in 2019, if the troop is comfortable with that.
If an adult leader needs to leave for an emergency or business or something like that, can they come back without a test if they are careful?
You have to, you have to talk to me about what you're describing. I mean, somebody in the adults, could I drive into town and get a prescription if I do the drive-through? Absolutely. I mean, you're not seeing anyone. You're driving to a window, So what you're describing, there is certain parameters that, yes, you could leave if you're using social distancing and you have a place to go. But, the idea is that you come to camp and you stay at camp.
If we have if we come to camp with a scoutmaster who is a registered nurse and have a medication locker, can they keep meds in your site?
Let me check on that one. The challenge is, I'm getting a no. The challenge is the nurse is working off of the doctor's orders, and the doctor's orders come out of Peterborough and come out of the hospital and our pediatrics relationship. And so the nurse is given the directive to give the drugs on the medical form to the scout. Now, if an adult needs meds, Becky, typically adults can keep some meds as long as we're not talking something too exciting. But yes, adults, there's flexibility to give your own medication, but the nurse has the orders from the doctor to administer the drug. So I guess that's a no, Becky, correct?
It is. It's also because New Hampshire makes me liable for all medications given in camp. So I need to have that responsibility piece. I have to give them. I can't delegate that to somebody else unless I have prepackaged it and I know and confirm with them that it's actually been given, such as the Scoutmaster deal. Like there are some nighttime medicines.
But that's something you do. You pass the chain of custody off to the
I
adult.
can set them up, or somebody that needs to take their medicine at the crack of dawn, or otherwise the campsite will be in shambles, that I can set up. But the New Hampshire guidelines is that the nurse has to administer the medicine, and it doesn't say that somebody else can do that.
Awesome.
I know that on normal campouts, the scoutmasters and all them handle the medicines, but it's not the same as according to camp guidelines.
Keep going, Owen. A couple more.
Awesome. A lot of questions about adults and kind of the ratio of adults to scouts. Is that ratio applied to the troop, or does it apply to the cohort? How many number of adults do you need in a cohort? That sort of thing.
Andrew, you're going to have to take this one.
Yeah, I'm processing it right now. So the adult leadership coverage would be for the unit. Really, it's for the cohort idea of having kids separate from other kids in another unit is for that social distancing, that mask wearing piece. So I'm going to say, maybe we can talk about it offline, Danny, the ratios would stay the same that we've done in the past by the unit. But like Will said earlier, if you have a large unit, if you're over 20 and you're bringing lots of adults to help support the 30, 40, 50 kids that are coming to camp for your unit, you're probably already naturally going to have multiple smaller cohorts you know, for social distancing purposes, and maybe it makes sense to assign 1 or 2 adults to those individual cohorts from a leadership perspective.
But the cohort can move around camp without an adult. So it's, you know, we don't necessarily need to have an adult to be moving these cohorts around. These are scouts.
Correct, yeah. Yep.
So I don't see much of a difference with the adults. If you have, you know, the adults are there to cover the troop. If a troop is 15 kids, that's 1 cohort, you know, 3 adults, it's 1. If you have 30, you're breaking it down into 2 cohorts and you probably have 3 or 4 adults. So it all goes together. I wouldn't get hung up on it. We just need to make sure we have 2 deep leadership in the site whenever possible. And, you know, we're not having one-on-one contact and we're following all the youth protection guidelines. So let's keep rolling.
How do cohorts work in Provo?
Provo creates a cohort.
Yeah, so since it'll be by sleeping, I believe the ideal is to meet up by cabins. And then that cabin on Sunday will select what they want for their program on that Sunday, and we will have reserved, you know, a couple staff members time really, so that we can slot them into the program they request.
But just so we can unpack a little bit, Will, in that case, if, you know, Scouts in Provo want certain badges, we may do those badges in the afternoon when badges are not normally taught and we have staff available. We may unpack the schedule so that we don't conflict with other groups and other cohorts. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, so yes, I'm going to try to keep the schedules as normal as possible, but we're going to do what we have to do to get people their top preferences as much as possible.
That's right. All right, let's keep going.
Can an older scout be a lone scout without taking Nova? Will?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, once again, if there is a troop or a unit where it's, you know, a bunch of 11 through 17-year-olds, or a bunch of 11 through 14-year-olds, and you have a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old, yes, they can take badges as lone scouts. Just know that their experience will be a little bit atypical, because in a badge, there'll be a cohort that sits together, and then this lone scout that has to sit 6 feet apart. And truthfully, 6 feet apart, really not that far. It's for if there are hands-on activities, then their experience will be a little more offset. But absolutely, they can sign up for badges.
Awesome. Rachel, how will shooting sports or areas that share equipment combat COVID?
Yeah, so for every area, whether you're talking about areas that share equipment or not, we're going to be sanitizing between cohorts anyways. So any object that goes from a scout to a scout is going to be sanitized between uses.
Awesome. Collins, this one's for you. If New Hampshire guidelines change, do we change? What are the forces that be that change our protocols?
We're going to meet the guidelines that the State of New Hampshire and the Boy Scouts of America outlined for us. If things change, then we will change and adapt with it. We're not going to be in the business of becoming stricter than what the Grand State wants us to do.
Great. Danny, this one's for you. Will camp trucks still be available for check-in?
Yeah. Yep. We can move gear. If you can't move it, we'll move it.
Awesome. And we've talked a lot about drop-off on Sunday and that check-in procedure. How will pickup on Saturday work?
It'll be much like drop-off. If you brought gear to your site, you'll be able to go up and get that gear. If we delivered it, we'll pick it up. The closing ceremony, we have not completely got through. I can't see us having large crowds on the field. It might be decentralized at the troop site after breakfast, but it won't look like it does normally with 4 dogs barking and 150 parents at all the troops on the field.
Great. Neville, this one's for you, or maybe this is for Collins. Trading post, how will that work? What does that look like?
Yeah. You may, what's the...
So I think much like Saturday departure, we're not quite sure what that's going to look like yet. We'll have a full service trading post. We're also looking to do some more online sales ahead of time with things like apparel for parents to purchase. We're not quite sure what it's going to look like. We will have a full-fledged camp store for all of your camping needs.
Bring back the cart.
We'll have a cart. We'll have a cart. It is also important to know, one of the unit leaders in the call texted me to remind me, with no parents' night, there is no opportunity for those parents to replenish the bank accounts of our scouts. So make sure they're going to camp with adequate resources to spend in the trading post all week.
Wanocksett credit card. We're on to something.
We do have the little square we can use, but all right, Doherty, any last questions? These are great questions.
Oh yeah, we're getting down to the last couple. So if anyone really has any in there, you better get them in fast. Collins, do unit leaders need to be 21 or can they be 18?
To count as the 2 deep minimum, the BSA, you have to have at least 2 21-year-olds in your unit. Over and above that, an adult can be 18.
All right, great. Neville, this question came in a while ago, so it may have been answered, but who decides the cohorts?
The troop does, or the unit does.
Awesome. Collins, if there is like a worst case scenario and there was a shortage of adult coverage, maybe an adult has to go home on the Friday before the Saturday for something, can a staff fill in the gap?
Absolutely. We'll figure something out. If an adult leader needs to depart on a Friday, I think hopefully I'm not speaking over you, Danny. We'll make it work.
We'll figure it out, but that's not an invitation to have us cover your adult leadership.
Yeah.
This is for an emergency or something happens. We're going to always have your back, but you need to plan for the proper adults.
Awesome. Can Provo choose to stay in their own tents if a scout would rather stay in a tent?
Yes.
Awesome. Can a parent of a scout administer the meds to their scout if they're an adult leader?
I'm getting a no from the nurse.
No.
I think it's the same answer as before.
Yeah.
I have to record it. It would have to be on a prepackaged arrangement that I'm saying you're going to take this dose. I poured the meds. You now have this prepackaged. Yes, you can now give this at nighttime or at bedtime or in the AM, but I need to record it because it's me, that's my license saying that this dose was given. Because otherwise you can come back and say to me, well, there's no signature here. This didn't happen. Now I'm liable. That's the way the state of New Hampshire sets it up.
Sounds like a good compromise, that prepackaging it though, if there's a need.
I can do that.
Rare case.
And
Keep rolling.
Collins, is the fee for an 18-year-old scout the same as an under 18-year-old scout?
An 18-year-old is not a scout.
Yeah, unless they're in a venturing crew, an 18-year-old is an adult. So.
Are we talking venturing or are we talking, like an 18-year-old who wants to come to camp because he's still friends with all the 17-year-olds, but he's coming as an adult? It's an adult fee. If we're in venturing and they're in the program, that's venturing. Is that right, Collins? I got that.
Yes. Yep.
Great. What is the kind of latest or earliest that we will know if that cost of the COVID test will be tacked on to?
The cost is being tacked on. It's a matter of whether it's 11 or 50. And if we get some funding, we can reduce that amount. But the testing is being paid for by the folks who are coming. But if we get funding, we can reduce that. As soon as we strike an agreement and we find out from the state of New Hampshire that pool testing fits the bill and we determine that it can get us what we want to protect the scouts and not cause folks to have to go home, and we make the decision, as soon as we get an agreement with the company, we'll get this out to you sooner rather than later.
If a troop is in the same site as another troop, and there's one leader from both troops in that, does that count as 2 deep leadership? Or is that even happening this year with shared troop sites?
There will be some sites that are shared. They're often sites that have separate sections, Big Sioux, Little Sioux, Upper, Lower Iroquois. If you have a small troop, you may share a larger site, absolutely. but each troop should have their own adult leadership. So now, if you're telling me that 2 troops from, Andover has, I'm so impressed that there are so many troops from Andover. If you're telling me that 2 troops are coming to camp and they're acting as one, and that's part of the agreement before they come to camp, that's a different conversation. But in the sense that each troop has their adult leadership to meet the 2 requirement. That made sense, Collins, right?
Yep.
Awesome. We're getting to the final ones. I just want to make sure I get all of them. First, Collins, there was a question, and this is probably a circumstance that if this was to happen, please reach out. But if you tested maybe 90 days out, 60 days out from going to camp, some people will test positive 90 days after they were still had COVID, so they can't get a negative test. What should that scout do in that situation?
That is probably a reach out to us, and we will pilfer through the guidelines.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's hard.
I'd like to shoot me a chat on who had that question. That's a good one. That's in the top 5 of the night.
That came a couple times in, I don't know where it was. Yeah. So, all right. I think this is the last question. If we're doing 1 scout per each tent, how will we know how many tents there are on the site so that we can plan to bring tents if we need to?
Well, that's a great question. We should plan to bring tents if we're doing 1 scout per site, but we also at the pre-camp meeting will know what site you're going to be in, and we can do some counts and have those counts for you. So that's a great one. Personal tents are going to be key this year. Personal tents are going to be super important if we're doing single, because we simply just don't have it. That's a good one. We kind of we glazed over that one at this meeting.
Awesome. And if anyone has any further questions, I would recommend you send it to any of those emails on there. But the final one that I got that came in a while ago, so it might have been answered, but its question is if campers can utilize New Hampshire vaccine sites if they can't get one in Massachusetts since they'll be camping in New Hampshire. My answer for that is Massachusetts will be opening up all sites for everybody on April 19th. So they should be able to get a vaccine if you want it before then. Once again, we are not requiring vaccines for anyone as of right now. And I also know that New Hampshire is also opening it up for Massachusetts residents on April 19th as well. But once again, we are not requiring the vaccine for everybody. If you jumbled your words and you meant testing, you can also probably, I think, utilize testing centers in New Hampshire, although there are lots of testing centers in Massachusetts as well.
That being said, the state of New Hampshire graciously is already started to immunize our staff. 16 plus, Collins, Nashua, New Hampshire itself.
Yeah, youth staff were included in the K to 12 educators in New Hampshire, regardless of residency. So I can tell you from experience, lots of our staff have chosen to help end this thing and go to Nashua High and Pelham High to get a shot in the arm.
And they are very excited. Awesome. Thank you all so much. I think that's all the questions we have. If you have any more, or if it's like something that just applies to one of your scouts or one of your adults, there's no questions that are too small. Just send them our way.
I can't see the number. How many folks stuck with us for an hour and 52 minutes?
We're at 100 right now, Danny.
Wow.
We maxed at 120 at one
folks,
point.
Thank you. I hope that you understand that we are doing everything we possibly can to get the program out to the youth in the best possible way and to do it safely. So thank you very much. It's good stuff.
Look forward to seeing everyone at camp. We'll get this webinar posted and get some emails out in the next couple days.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.